Call it, what's that?
Floor privileges script.
Senator from Kentucky.
I ask unanimous consent that the following interns in my office be granted floor privileges until May 5th, 2023. Andrew Jaraki, Nick Sierko, Leon Kamenev, and Henry Beck.
Without objection.
Madam President.
Senator from New Jersey.
Madam President, I rise to speak to the amendments that we are considering on the effort to repeal the 1991 and 2002 authorization for the use of military force. As I have previously said, I welcome a broader discussion on the 2001 authorization for the use of military force, but that is not before us today. Following repeal of the 1991 and 2002 AUMFs, I hope that we can engage in what will likely be a robust debate about what authorities the administration does need and what the scope potentially of a replacement AUMF would be. But as yet, we have not had that substantive discussion. And I don't believe it would be wise to repeal the 2001 AUMF without engaging in that debate first, without having the hearings to understand what is the authorities the administration needs to continue to protect America. The details matter here. We just finished a hearing at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee with the Secretary of State. He testified before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee that the 2001 AUMF is still a vital authority that is being relied on. So we may disagree with how the 2001 AUMF has been maybe stretched by other executive branches and concerns as to how we will continue to use it, but an outright repeal with nothing to replace it, is not a sound response that ensures our military has what it needs to execute missions in defense of U.S. interests. So I support a debate to replace the 2001 AUMF and to develop what should be the specifics of that replacement. But absent a framework to replace it with a new authority, how do we repeal it outright and leave the country naked? So I urge my colleagues to oppose the Paul amendment. And I see the distinguished leader on the floor, so I'll yield to him at this time.
They need to call up their amendments. Do you
Senator from New Jersey.
Madam President. Okay, let me continue that. I should be relatively brief to get to the vote. I want to speak to Senator Graham's amendment. I share and appreciate Senator Graham's concern about the Iranian regime. Indeed, he and I have worked very closely on the issue of Iranian threats. I've spent the better part of my career addressing Iranian threats, its nuclear program, its support for global terrorism, its destabilizing its neighborhood through proxies and interference, and the threat that it poses to its own citizens. Yet the question before us is not whether Iran poses a threat to U.S. interests, but whether the 2002 AUMF is necessary to counter those threats, and if there is already sufficient legal authority to respond to any such threat. And the answer is pretty clear. The President is clear in his view, one shared by every recent administration, that he has sufficient authority under Article 2 to defend U.S. interests and personnel against Iranian-backed militias. And indeed, the administration has actually taken military action a number of times to protect and defend our personnel against attacks from these groups and to deter future attacks. The fact is, the 2002 AUMF that we have been debating is superfluous to today's military efforts in the Middle East. The administration has the authorities it needs to address Iranian threats to our people and our interests. Now, I thought this debate was about ending the authorization of use of force that already exists, that no longer needs to exist, and that should be closed. Just as Congress has the power and the responsibility to declare and to give the authorization of use of military force, it should also end it. That's what this discussion is about. That's what this debate is about. That's what these votes are about. Not to create a new authorization for force. That's what Senator Graham's amendment would do. I think that would be a lot more robust debate as to how and when and in what way we would give such authority. So I'd urge my colleagues, as someone who has fought for the better part of these 25 years against Iran, and will take a backseat to no one as it relates to that fight, that in fact we oppose that amendment. With that, I yield the floor.
Madam President.
Senator from Virginia.
Madam President.
Oh, Senator, hold on just a second.